The Rich Man and the Tanner. A rich man took up his residence next door to a tanner, and found the smell of the tan yard so extremely unpleasant that he told the tanner he must go. The tanner delayed his departure, and the rich man had to speak to him several times about it, and every time the tanner said he was making arrangements to move very shortly. This went on for some time, till at last the rich man got so used to the smell that he ceased to mind it, and troubled the tanner with his objections no more. The Wolf, the Mother, and her Child. A hungry wolf was prowling about in search of food. By and by, attracted by the cries of a child, he came to a cottage. As he crouched beneath the window, he heard the mother say to the child, "Stop crying, do, or I'll throw you to the wolf." Thinking she really meant what she said, he waited there a long time in the expectation of satisfying his hunger. In the evening he heard the mother fondling her child and saying, "If the naughty wolf comes, he shan't get my little one. Daddy will kill him." The wolf got up in much disgust and walked away. "As for the people in that house," said he to himself, "you can't believe a word they say." The Old Woman and the Wine Jar. An old woman picked up an empty wine jar which had once contained a rare and costly wine, and which still retained some traces of its exquisite bouquet. She raised it to her nose and sniffed at it again and again. "Ah!" she cried, "how delicious must have been the liquid which has left behind so ravishing a smell!" The Lioness and the Vixen. A Lioness and a Vixen were talking together about their young, as mothers will, and saying how healthy and well grown they were, and what beautiful coats they had, and how they were the image of their parents. "My litter of cubs is a joy to see," said the Fox, and then she added rather maliciously, "but I notice you never have more than one." "No," said the Lioness grimly, "but that one's a lion." The moral of the story is, quality is what's important, not quantity. The Viper and the File. A Viper entered a carpenter's shop and went from one to another of the tools, begging for something to eat. Among the rest, he addressed himself to the File, and asked for the favour of a meal. The File replied in a tone of pitying contempt, "What a simpleton you must be if you imagine you will get anything from me. I'll invariably take from everyone and never give anything in return." And the moral here is that the covetous are poor givers. The Cat and the Cock. A Cat pounced on a cockerel and cast about for some good excuse to make a meal of him, for cats don't as a rule eat cocks, and she knew she ought not to. At last she said, "You make a great nuisance of yourself at night by crowing and keeping people awake, so I'm going to make an end of you." But the Cock defended himself by saying that he crowed in order that men might wake up and set about the day's work in good time, and that they really couldn't very well do without him. "That may be," said the Cat, "but whether they can or not, I'm not going without my dinner." And she killed and ate him. The moral of this story is that the want of a good excuse never kept a villain from crime. The Hare and the Tortoise. A Hare was one day making fun of a Tortoise for being so slow upon his feet. "Wait a bit," said the Tortoise, "I'll run a race with you, and I'll wager that I win." "Oh, well," replied the Hare, who was much amused at the idea, "let's try and see." And it was soon agreed that the Fox should set a course for them and be the judge. When the time came, both started off together, but the Hare was soon so far ahead that he thought he might as well have a rest. So down he lay and fell fast asleep. Meanwhile, the Tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. At last the Hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the Tortoise had already won the race. The moral here is, slow and steady wins the race. The Soldier and his Horse. A soldier gave his horse a plentiful supply of oats in times of war, and tended him with the utmost care, for he wished him to be strong and able to endure the hardships of the field, and swift to bear his master when need arose, to carry him out of the reach of danger. However, when the war was over, he employed him on all sorts of drudgery, bestowing but little attention upon him, and giving him, moreover, nothing but chaff to eat. The time came when war broke out again, and the soldier saddled and bridled his horse, and, having put on his heavy coat of mail, mounted the horse to ride off and take the field. But the poor half-starved beast sank down under his weight, and said to his rider, "You will have to go into battle on foot this time. Thanks to hard work and bad food, you've turned me from a horse into an ass, and you cannot in a moment turn me back again into a horse." The Oxen and the Butchers. Once upon a time the Oxen determined to be revenged upon the Butchers for the havoc they wrought in their ranks, and plotted to put them to death on a given day. They were all gathered together discussing how best to carry out the plan, and the more violent of them were engaged in sharpening their horns for the fray, when an old ox got up on his feet and said, "My brothers, you have good reason, I know, to hate these butchers, but at any rate they do understand their trade, and they do what they have to do without causing unnecessary pain. But if we kill them, others, who have no experience, will be sent to slaughter us instead, and will by their bungling inflict great sufferings upon us. For you may be sure that even though all the butchers may perish, mankind will never go without their beef." The Wolf and the Lion. A Wolf stole a lamb from the flock, and was carrying it off to devour it at his leisure, when he met a Lion, who took his prey away from him and walked off with it. The Wolf dared not resist, but when the Lion had gone some distance, he said, "It is most unjust of you to take what's mine away from me like that." The Lion laughed and called out in reply, "Aye, it was justly yours, no doubt, the gift of a friend, perhaps, eh?"